Okay. So we've confirmed that we already talked about Sinners. Did we also already talk about The King Tide?
No.
All right, then I'll save that. All right. I have a new segment, and you're going to love it because it's
Oh,
a spin off of one of your favorite segments. I call it Grinding My Own Gears, which I'm now saying out loud I realize was a terrible title for this. Anyway, it's a what grinds my gears, which I know you love, but it's something that I do myself, and it annoys me.
oh, oh.
I caught myself the other day being really annoyed, and then I'm like, "You're the one who did that." I'm like, "Yeah, and it annoys
You're
me."
the one who did that.
So,
Uh,
can you, to the best of your ability, not to my ability, can you, to the best of your ability, explain to me what the Mandela effect is?
sure. So, first, I'll just explain it be based on why it's called that. There were some people. So when Nelson Mandela died, and forgive me, I actually don't know from the top of my head what year that was or when that was. There were a good number of people who, heard that news, saw that on the news or whatever, and they responded with, I could have sworn several years prior to now, I heard this news. I saw coverage of Nelson Mandela's funeral and things like that. And so there were a significant number of people who were certain that they had experienced this thing happen before, that Nelson Mandela had passed away. Um, and so then people started to wonder, well, do are have we slipped into an alternate universe or something? And then there started to be other things that people would say were evidence of this kind of thing. For example, another really big one is the Berenstain Bears or Berenstain Bears. Uh, and like they could have sworn when they were growing up that it was Berenstein or Steen and it was spelled that way. But now they see books and it's Berenstain,
I'm one of those.
Stain.
I'm one
Right.
of those.
And
I remember it that
there
way.
are many other examples where people are certain when they were
There's
growing up it was like this, but now it's clearly
also
like this.
there's a non-existent movie called Shazam in which the actor Sinbad plays a genie, which it's not real. There, Shaquille O'Neal played a genie in a movie called Kazam, but
Hmm.
huge swaths of the internet are convinced to the degree that now there's you can find posters and stuff because like people have mocked them up. But yeah, people are convinced that Sinbad was in a movie where he played a genie and it was called Shazam. No such movie exists. But
Right.
a key, and actually, I remember the Mandela effect is happening before he died. That it was just a thing where a bunch of people were sure he was dead and they had seen his funeral. Because I remember
Oh, before he
saying
died.
the
Oh.
Mandela effect, people think Mandela's dead and he's not. And now it's confusing because he's actually dead. So I'm like,
Oh.
so everybody's right, but it's not in the way you thought.
Oh,
Anyway,
okay.
but I may be misremembered. It may be a Mandela effect. I don't know. The key point here is it is a mass circumstance. Lots of people remember this. If you, as an individual, are like, I thought Nelson Mandela was dead, I remember seeing his funeral, and literally everyone else in the world is like, what are you talking about? That's not the Mandela effect. You're just wrong. And I don't remember what it was, but just the other day I was like, "Oh, I thought it was like this. It's like a Mandela effect thing." And then later I'm like, "Nobody else thought that." I don't think you can have a Mandela effect of one. So, yeah, it's very similar to the thing where people want to say anytime someone lies to you it's gaslighting.
Yeah, right.
It's like,
Right.
"No.
No.
All Mandela effect are people being wrong about something, but all people being wrong about something is not the Mandela effect." But now
Yeah.
that I say it out loud, though, I might have to start doing that. Anytime I encounter anyone wrong about anything, I'll be like, Mandela effect. could be fun. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Magical Talking Hat podcast, the only podcast in the world that doesn't start like this. You're just misremembering. I'm Nelson Mandela. Wait. Sorry.
No.
I'm Tony.
Yeah. And I'm William, and this is episode 745. What part of that thing was you grinding your gears?
Because I recently misremembered something and told myself it was the Mandela.
Oh, you did
I
it.
believe I
Okay.
said it out loud in a group of people, and nobody said anything. But then later that evening, I was like, "That's
Sorry.
not what that was. I was just wrong."
All right, I misunderstood. I thought you heard someone else say that, but you were saying you said
No.
that.
I mean, I have, I think, in the past, but I caught myself doing it, and that's what recently reminded me that sucked. The gaslighting one's been around forever, and I've actually seen some pretty good sketch comedy about that concept of people just, you lied and I didn't like it, so you're gaslighting me.
Yeah, right. I actually got in a
That's
big
bad. I mean, people shouldn't lie to you.
No,
but it's not the same thing.
Yeah, I actually had a big argument with someone about that once. They said, "Oh, someone's gaslighting me." I said, "Well, what did they do?" And they described it as, "Oh, well, that's not what gaslighting is. They're telling you something that's not true." And in fact, in this instance, the person telling them the thing that wasn't true, I'm not sure the person
Sorry, you looking up, it really looks like whoever you're talking about is right upstairs. And you're like, and furthermore.
No, the thing the person was telling them, the person believed, right? So
okay.
They weren't even really technically lying. They were just saying something that wasn't so.
They just disagreed with you. So
yeah. I mean, the thing was factually wrong. It was, but they would admit the person saying it believed it. So it's like, okay, so not only are they not technically lying, I mean, they're saying something that's not technically true, but they're not technically lying. They're not trying to convince you're crazy or anything like that. So it's
they're clearly suffering from the Mandela effect.
But it was a huge argument I had with this person. I was like, listen, you can't just be calling something that is, well, I mean, you can. People do it all the time, but it's like it's not helpful to call something it's not. And gaslighting is a pretty serious thing for a person. I mean, that's like a sociopathic thing for a person to do. So it's a fairly strong accusation, in my opinion. So one should be precise,
it's one of those sentences that's never been, I mean, because to paraphrase a friend of mine, it's not like gaslighting's in the DSM.
No.
So it's not, it's one of those words that like came into being, but nobody ever worked real hard to define it. And so I get that, but there's some that I'm just like, that's not what that means at all. Anyway, if you're just joining us for the first time, you've been listening to us the whole time. You just don't remember because you're going crazy. You've always been listening to us. We have always been at war with WTF. That was the only successful, which is over now or ending. Mark Maron's ending WTF, apparently. One of the few podcasts that was older than us. It's dying off, but we're still here. Just got to wait for Mabim Bam to die. Mabim Bam's like less than a year earlier than us, and it bugs me all the time because we're more consistent, but they are technically older than us, and have had slightly more success.
I don't even know who that is.
The McElroy brothers. Oh. Mabim Bam, my brother, and me. I talk about them all the time. Are you gaslighting me?
I didn't know.
Is this a Mandela effect?
The whole Bim Bam thing. I'm not sure.
Mabim Bam. That's the initials. My brother, and me.
I don't remember you.
That Mabim Bam.
I don't remember you ever calling it that.
Stop gaslighting me.
I just don't remember.
Go and sit. That's because of the Mandela effect. Get out of here. With that bullshit. Don't gaslight me with your Mandela effect. Anyway, we have a hat. It's magic. It has its own email address, themagicaltalkinghat@gmail.com. And people write into that email address, themagicaltalkinghat@gmail.com, with whatever the crap they feel like. Notes, comments, questions, topics, manifestos, pictures sometimes. The hat magically forwards the emails to us, makes us read them. That's what we do. That's the show. Except most of it's not that. All right. Not that I can trust anything that comes out of your mouth anymore, but how's your week been?
Okay, now I have to think about, try to remember. Even when I tell myself, "Oh, I'm going to talk
There's
about this
no
on the
way you could
podcast,"
have predicted I would ask you this. So
this is what I'm saying. Even when I think about ahead of time, oh, this is what I'm going to talk about. Like, there's always a run up to it where you have your little cold open thing, or you have this, or you have that, or we talk about the, and so then I forget whatever it is, and I don't
take
write it
notes.
down. I know, that's what I should probably do.
I try not to judge too much because it was only last week that for the first time ever I had the brilliant idea to write the title we came up with on the notes app for the next week. I was prepared. I did eventually go for the original spelling of Frankenfocused because I think it just looks funnier that way. So I didn't. In my notes, it said Frank N focused, but I think Frankenfocused is better.
Yeah. I mean,
also, we're getting another Frankenstein after this Frankenstein. There's a Del Toro's Frankenstein is happening, but then there's a different Frankenstein happening with Christian Bale as the monster, and I forget who else is in it. I know because it recently just got delayed. But yeah, so we're getting. Yeah, apparently they did some. They showed an image of Christian Bale as the monster, and it was really annoying because he looked like Jared Leto's Joker because he like has tattoos that say things and shit. So they've had to be like, he doesn't really look like that in the movie. It's okay, but everything's coming up Frankenstein.
I guess I hadn't heard that.
Yeah.
So Father's Day happened for us. When people, this will be for everybody else, this will be a whole week later. But Father's Day.
I
did
texted
happen.
my father-in-law to wish him a happy Father's Day and never heard back.
We actually
Truly, I have no dad.
We actually didn't do anything really for it. I didn't see anybody or get together with anybody.
Delmer and Freya didn't make you breakfast in bed or nothing?
No, they were, they were doing stuff with, their dad, of course, which that's how
they were making him breakfast in bed.
Yeah.
Little 2-year-olds.
But I mean, I heard from people. I got nice, messages from people, and that was nice. But yeah, we didn't do very much, but still, Abby and I sort of marked the day of, oh, it's Father's Day, and she did things for me for Father's Day. We tried to have a special supper or whatever, heard from some people, very nice things. So, but it wasn't like a big to do or anything. And other than that, Abby and I, we did, Diablo 4 a year or so ago had a new thing you could buy, a Vessel of Hatred. You know how they have seasons, but then sometimes, but sometimes they also have like a release of a major whatever, and it's like almost, it costs as much as a regular game, really. Okay. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. I think we just call that DLC.
Right, but like not content. Yeah, but not all DLCs are considered worth, or like almost a whole new game, or like a second part 2 of a whole new game. Are they?
Yeah, they would say that was a big DLC.
Oh, a big DLC. Okay.
I mean,
all right, fine.
If it's just attached to an existing game, that's generally what they're going to call it. Now, if this is a standalone that you don't have to boot up Diablo 4 to play, then that's a separate game. It's like a spin-off game.
Oh, yeah.
If it's something where you have to already have Diablo 4 for it to even work, it's a DLC.
Okay.
But I guess that makes sense. They make a big one sometimes.
Okay. Well, that's what this was. It's called Vessel of Hatred. And it's been released a long time, but you don't have to buy it to play Diablo 4 or whatever. And so we bought it because there was a deal on it, I think for Father's Day, and we just thought, and there's more map, like it's a big thing. There's a lot to it. And we're like, all right. Yeah. Oh, and there's a whole new class, Spiritborn class. So it's like, all right, let's do this. And so we got on, and Abby is trying out the new class, and she likes it quite a bit. It's pretty fun. Um, and so that is one thing we've been doing is playing uh, Diablo 4. But also, maybe I should
So
mention this.
you're
We
just Electro Wizard every time now.
pretty much, but it's fun to watch her experiment with other things. We're also watching, we watch documentaries sometimes, and recently what we've been watching are some YouTube creators who do academic um, deep dives into esoterica, like Hermeticism and alchemy and all that stuff, original texts, things like that. And these are people with PhDs who want to present something that is sourced and that, whatever. And they have pretty good reputation, a lot of them in their fields. And it's been really interesting to watch that. Abby in particular is interested in this right now.
Cool.
So we've been watching a lot of that. It's pretty interesting. It's pretty interesting what people were writing books about in in the ancient world, what kinds of ideas they had about things, and how some of the ideas have resonance even now, like the as above so below thing that, like, a lot of hermeticists talked about. Well, that kind of ties in with fractals and chaos theory a little bit. So it's like, that's kind of interesting how these things really are not just something that you can apply to today, but that are deep concepts you can apply to today. It's really kind of interesting. But anyhow, we've been doing that, and that's been fun.
Cool.
How was your week?
It's all right. Not a lot happening. We watched a couple movies. As I mentioned earlier, we watched a movie called The King Tide that we wanted to watch for a while. It is fine, but basically just watch Midnight Mass. It's a better version. It's well, and to the degree that King Tide would be better as a series, I think. If you didn't try and fit it, it's not the same story. Midnight Mass is about vampires, but it is an isolated island community gets a brush with something supernatural, and they come to rely on it heavily, and then everything goes to shit. That classic folk horror story. And it's just a little weird here because in this version, the supernatural thing is a baby that they found who grows up into a little girl who everybody just feels better and cures illnesses if they're around her. And then they come to they shut down their medical facilities on the island because they just have her, and then hijinks ensue. And yeah, just something with more Midnight Mass had more character, and even for being really bleak at the end, it still was a more satisfying, I really felt just sad at the end of this one, just not in a satisfying way. And Midnight Mass is dark as shit and fucked up as shit, and it's definitely terrible people doing terrible things, but you get it, the characters are fleshed out and they're interesting, and the question, this one is just, what if a small community had diametrically opposed opinions on a thing and then fought each other a lot and everything went to shit? It's not a great time. So, but I don't want to say it is a bad movie. It's just kind of a bummer of a movie, and I think Midnight Mass is better. We watched a Korean film called The Call. Now, this is tricky. There are approximately 49,000 movies called The Call.
Oh yeah, probably.
It's one of those movies that really needs to stop being used as a title. In 2020, 2 movies came out called The Call.
Just in 1 year.
Yes.
That's funny.
One of them, shockingly, I've actually seen. Trish pulled it up. She's like, this isn't the movie I was thinking of, but I've seen it. It stars Lin Shaye and Tobin Bell. You'd think it would be an amazing horror movie. It's not. It's fine. It's a very generic, scary house thing. I even forget the premise, but they show up and 7 horny teens have 12 hours to get to a phone and make a call, or they'll be eaten by ghoulies, or it's that kind of movie. And it's fine. It'll kill an evening. It's not a bad movie, but it's also ran whatever. This is the Korean movie called The Call from 2020. So if you seek this out, that's what. And the real basic premise here is we've seen this in other things. And in fact, I think they did an American version of this movie that bombed hard. Uh, it's a phone where two people are talking and they're in different time periods. It's that thing.
Oh, okay.
And so it's an adult woman goes back to the house that she lived in, and she's getting phone calls from a girl who lived in the house right before her family moved in when she was a kid. And so there's like a 20-30 year gap here kind of thing. And then hijinks ensue from that. It's very original in what it does, and I want to give it a lot of kudos for that.
Okay.
As it goes on, the time travel gets worse. Because they try and do more with it and nail it down more, and it just so. And basically, by the last half hour, making sense is gone, and so I am disappointed in that. I'm not sure it was the kind of movie for me. It is also pretty sort of dark in a way that is sort of, it doesn't have things to lighten the mood particularly.
Okay.
It's just pretty but it's interesting and it's original, and I want to give it credit for that. So I did kind of enjoy it. And if you're like me and you're like, I've been watching a lot of shit and I need to find new shit, this is for you. I do want to talk for a quick second. But okay, video game wise, I am still playing Expedition 33, Clair Obscur, still loving it. I am now in the final act, which means I now essentially know the mystery and like what's going on. And that unfortunately was a very compelling reason I was playing. So like I've slowed down in how much I'm playing, but I still love it and I want to finish it. And I'm chomping at the bit because I got several video games in the wings that I'm excited about. So we'll have to see. I recently have rediscovered a director.
Okay.
They are a French director, and almost none of you are going to know who this is, but I'm sure there's one or two perverts in our listening audience, and you're going to know what this is. This is a French director named Jean Rollin. His name is spelled like it's Jean Rollin, like rolling, but with no G at the end. Jean Rollin, Jean Rollin. And he has made a ton of films. I think he's dead now. He mostly made films in the 60s and 70s. And I think he actually made a lot of porn films. That was a big thing with a lot of like low budget filmmakers in Europe, is they would make the movies they wanted to, and then to earn money to make them, they'd just shoot porns on the side. And so I think he's one of those. I've never seen any of that. I've just seen his real films, which are very art house films that are still very erotic, for lack of a better word. And he's really, his big theme is he loves lesbian vampires.
Oh, okay.
His movies involve a lot of lesbian vampires, a lot of vampires, a lot of lesbians, and a lot of lesbian vampires. That's a thing. But these are like he's really working something here, and they're very gratuitous in a lot of ways. Anyway, the reason I bring this up is when I was younger, this guy was like my favorite director because I was a horny teenage boy and there were so many naked women in these movies and I loved it. And it was great. And then I got a little older and was like, these movies suck. Even though I love naked women, I am mature enough now that just seeing a naked woman don't do it for me. And in between the naked women are these interminably boring stretches. They're either these incredibly vapid philosophical discussions in French with subtitles, but that mean nothing, or it's just shots of like people walking somewhere and it's like in real time and it takes them 5 minutes, and they're just terrible, and they're so boring that the copious amounts of naked women don't overcome that. And I was like, whatever. Anyway, so I haven't seen any in years. Recently, Shudder dumped a whole bunch of them on there, and I was like, huh. And so I looked at him again, and I like him again, but for yet, like, I liked them when I was younger for one reason, I disliked them for a different reason, and now I like them again for yet a third reason. Now I just enjoy them as very serious, earnest, and bad movies. It's just fun to watch the choices and occasionally see glimpses, be like, that was a really cool idea. And to see, he's very art house. So, like, he does weird shots. So there'll be like a close up shot, and these two guys are explaining something, and they're sitting next to each other. But we get a real close shot, and one of them is like so focused. And then when his sentence is finished, he pulls off, and the other guy comes up and says his. And they're terribly filmed. Like, there's bits where people are having conversations about a person, and then in a later scene, that person, one of those people, is like, who's that? You never mentioned that before. And I'm like, you did, literally, I saw you guys talk about it earlier. So these kind of things. There was one shot where we were panning, supposed to show that a bedroom was empty, and we panned over to the empty bed dramatically, and you could see someone's arm and shoulder sitting in a chair next to it, like just dressed like part of the crew or something. Was just like, they're badly. And I love, and it's especially fun because they are all in French with subtitles. I've never seen a dubbed version of one of his movies. He is sort of a cult favorite. Like, he has a following. People really like him. But they're all in French, which means I have a little hard time getting the nuances of the acting. So, like, sometimes I'm not sure how bad the acting is, because I've discovered if you are acting in a language other than the language I know, sometimes bad acting can be hidden.
Yeah, that's right.
And it's really hard to figure out what's supposed to be funny.
No, it's sometimes, yeah.
Because some of this is insane. There was this vampire lady, and she's going after, because it's lesbian, so she's going after this bride, and she visits her in the night, and weird shit happens, and every night it's different weird shit or whatever. But for some reason, every time she shows up in the movie, it's like a new interesting entrance. So, like, the first time there's just a secret door moves and she walks in, but then there's another time where we're just looking at the bed and suddenly the curtains part and she's there wearing basically nothing with this giant, and it's hilarious. I laughed out loud because it was so sudden. And then there's like, and I say, I'm talking about this like it's one movie. This is the one I saw most recently. I've seen like 3 of them since this came out. And then later in the movie, there's one where we're just staring and this hatch opens and she comes out and like drops down from the seat. Like, I don't know why. It became a very Gene Parmesan from Arrested Development thing of like, is she going to be a giant teddy bear next and like pull her away? Like, what is happening? So it's just all of this stuff, and it's hilarious, but also very interesting and of the time. So yeah, I'm revisiting this, and I found out he made a movie as late as 2002, and I watched that one, and it is very different in some ways, but very much the same. But what cracks me up is he was really trying to go for some interesting lore. So this one is also about vampires, but in this one there are the parallels, and the parallels are these weird, not quite human, but not quite immortal creatures that live a half life serving Master Dracula, but also living amongst the humans. And they're all like, one of them is just like a legit vampire, and one of them is called the She Wolf, and she has like long claws, and I think she's supposed to be like a werewolf thing. And then there's one that is 2 people, and it's like a Jekyll and Hyde thing. And one is this vapid village idiot nearby, and the other is the ogress, and she's really mean, and she has to eat flesh, that like living flesh, that's her curse or whatever. And one of them is a little guy dressed as a jester, complete with bells on his hat, and that is literally the only discerning thing about him. Like, his spooky supernatural thing is he's short and wears bells.
Okay. Yeah,
they're weird movies. Anyway, so yeah, I've been having fun with those because they're ridiculous. The new ones are funny too because they went out of their way to not show a lot of sex and nudity for the most part. Like, to the degree that they had a scene where like somebody mooned someone and they were wearing relatively modest undergarments to do it. And I'm like, this is weird. But then there were just like one or two characters that were like they had been brought forward from the 70s ones that were just like wearing naked the whole time or wearing like something see-through the whole time. Like, and I'm just like, why are you the rest of the what is happening? Like, is it like an Easter egg? Is it like a callback? Remember when I used to have constant nudity in these movies? Like, I don't understand what's happening. It was also terrible, but in a hilarious way. And very serious. They're all very serious, and I love them for that. Anyway, I've killed enough time with that crap. We should probably do an email. That sounds like a thing we do.
Yeah, let's do that. All right, let's see. Stu wants to know.
I've heard of Stu.
Well, first he says, I listen to the podcast in the car when driving the kids to school, etc. I can never remember the things I want to put in comments, even to the extent that I've been meaning to submit this question for months. So he asks, how do you remember things? Do you carry around a notepad, for example?
All right. Well, this is fun because we could dovetail this with solving his problem. And we've talked about this on the blog. The answer to your situation, Stu, is that you need to listen to each episode 3 times. One time just to experience us, and then one time to decide exactly what sort of comments you make, and then another time to write down those comments. And then you can send them to us or whatever. Barring that, I know for a fact that even your youngest child is old enough to read and write. Just set them with a pad and paper while you're in the car taking them to school and be like, hey, Kieran, write this down. I want to tell the guys about this later. Write this down. This is funny. Also, you shouldn't let your children listen to this podcast.
Probably not.
We got a whole thing called Pervert Corner.
I mean, I don't remember things, but as the beginning of this podcast indicate, we've been doing this for 14 years. I frequently thought, oh, this is something that would be good for the podcast. And then by the time I get to the point where Tony's actually asked me how my week was, so much has happened in the podcast up to that point that I couldn't have anticipated or known about that I'm completely thrown off. That's just the way I am. I've been that way my whole life. What do I do about it? Nothing. Well, so
he cries a lot.
Where in things I have an obligation, like a professional obligation, for example, to remember things. I put them in a calendar and in notes that I, am going to be forced to read when I check my email or when I check my calendar or whatever else. That's just what I do. But I only do that for things that where other people, either in a professional or personal situation, are going to rely on me to remember this thing, especially if I have to remember it at a particular time, or I have to do a particular, well, for example, so one thing I have to do as a new therapist is I have to keep track of hours because I'm going to have to report that down the road so I can get permanent licensure or whatever. So I put that all in a spreadsheet so I can remember it. And in that spreadsheet, I also have tabs for whenever I have to renew things, professional things, like I've got to pay the dues for this organization, or I've got to pay my premium for my liability insurance. So, I just have, and I check these things periodically just to make sure I'm not missing something or I'm up on things. But again, that's all in a professional or personal situation where I know someone's going to expect me to do a thing, and I'll probably get into some serious trouble if I don't. Otherwise, if it's a low stakes thing, such as this podcast, I just don't remember. I just forget. And I don't do anything about it.
This is 100% a thing. And this is, for years, this is how I got shit done, was someone else has to be relying on it.
Yeah, that's what it is for
if
me.
I'm doing it for someone else, I'll do it. If it's just for me, I can let myself down all the time. I do it regularly. I've done it 5 times during this podcast recording.
Me too.
I can do it all the time. That's fine. But if it's somebody else, but familiarity breeds contempt. because the logic of this would say I'm relying on you, therefore you would be very meticulous because you don't want to let me down. But we've been friends for nigh on fucking 20 years, and some part of your brain, which is good because I don't think it's healthy to be like, I do things serious as long as someone other than me is relying. I don't think that's a good way to live.
Right.
But some part of your brain is like, it's just Tony, it's just a podcast, it'll be fine. And it's not wrong, but it's very interesting because unfortunately, this can lead to things like sometimes you don't try as hard when the only person relying on you is your spouse, and it's not a big deal. But you feel terrible about that. Like I mean, I'm sorry, I'm speaking for you, but you and I are both the kind of people that if we thought for a second that we had even slightly let down our spouses in any moment for anything, we hate ourselves.
No, yeah, no, you're right about that.
But it also happens because it happens. They let us down too. It's just
Sure.
the thing.
Just
And I think over time, some part of our brain gets used to that, and we sort of don't try as hard for the situation where we theoretically should be trying the hardest based on our own belief system.
Sure.
But when it's a professional thing out in the world, then we're like, okay, like that. So, no, I feel exactly what you are experiencing, and it's always interesting for me because people's memories get worse over years, and it gets bad. And okay, this is a little window into Tony's mental health situation. What I'm about to describe to everyone is my inner monologue and its own biases and angry emotional stuff. What I am about to say is not something I rationally believe to be true, but this is what my brain does in this situation. So somebody's like, I just can't remember anything. I'm just so bad at it. And my brain's like, you hold down a job. That's got shit you have to remember.
Yeah.
Have you ever done a closing shift at your work and left the door unlocked or whatever? Do you do that regularly? You somehow can remember that. But apparently, when it's shit that matters to me, your friend or partner or whatever, suddenly your memory's bad. Like, there's something selective about this. Like, sometimes you don't have memory problems when it's important, which means now when you're having memory problems with me, must not be very important to you. So I guess I don't matter. And fuck you, you're a terrible person. That's what my brain does. But my brain is doing that less, A, because I'm in so much therapy, and B, because my memory's going. And it's the same deal. Like, I remember to put the car in park, fine. Like I don't hold down a job now, but like there are things that I remember because it's important to remember them, and then there are things I don't, and the implication is, oh, is that not as important to me? And I feel bad about that because I know it's not true. Anyway, we should probably talk about solutions.
Okay. I mean, I don't know what they are because
listen
I'm really bad at remembering things. I don't
listen to every episode of the podcast 3 times. Everybody start doing that. No, we've talked about this a ton of times. We're all old now. In our house, we are reaching the age where our memory is going. Also, my wife is in the throes of menopause, in which memory is a bad thing. Not a bad thing, but a fucked up thing. Also, I do a lot of weed, which, shocker, does not help the memory long term. So, in our household, we are fucking forgetting everything these days. And the solution is you just have to make a record somewhere. I use my phone all the time. They literally are doing things on some phone. I've seen commercials for this, and I don't advocate this. It sounds terrible. But they have phones now with every phone has an AI assistant, at this point. But they have ones that will combine what's on your calendar with tracking where you go normally in a day, and essentially they will run your day for you. And I don't mean like they'll notify, like literally it'll pop up and they're like, now you got to go do this. Oh, now you got a half hour to have coffee. And because it'll know what appointments you have and also what your normal routine is. And so if we're at that point, your memory problems can be fixed. It's just how much you're willing to become a cyborg.
Well, yeah. Yeah, I
And
agree.
for
Yep.
me, at this point, it is everything goes in my calendar on my phone right away, including my wife's appointments. Literally, she's going for a haircut and I'm at home. She texts me as she's making the next appointment, and I put it in my phone so we know when it's going to happen. And then the notes app. I have so many different. At one, we all know I have a notes file literally for this podcast. Um, but obviously, it's going to be different for some. Some people are going to want to write physical notes. Uh, some people are going to use, if you have a home assistant thing like a Alexa, they can do that shit for you. I don't know because we don't have those in our house either. But yeah, you have it. None of us are. We're at the point. I know that some of you are younger than me, but not many of you are a lot younger than me. I would venture to guess. I don't think we have anyone listening over 30 or over under 40 at this point. I think.
Hmm. Okay.
Not positive, but it's not going to get better. The point at which we had a chance to improve our memory situation has passed. Now we are in damage control. There are things you can do to help it degrade slower, but your memory right now is the best it's going to be for the rest of your life in this moment. It's only going downhill. So you got to adjust. And most importantly, and this is a huge one because old people are the worst, this is another important old person thing. You need to be honest about your memory. You have
Mm.
to stop going around pretending things are fine. You also don't have to stop pretending your hearing's fine. Like, stop trying to pretend these things aren't happening because it just disrupts everyone around you. If you can't remember things, that's fine. That's how the brain works. It gets tired, I guess. I don't know. I don't know how the brain works. But the point is, as you get older, your memory gets worse. That just happens. I don't know. How or why exactly. But be honest and open about it, and then yeah, you just have to use record creeping tools to fix it, or be like William and just say, I've decided I don't care.
Well, that's not really what I do.
It is literally what you said a few minutes ago. Your memory is so bad you don't remember you said those exact words just a few minutes ago. Your memories.
I didn't say I don't care.
That is literally what you said. You're clearly misremembering it. It's the Mandela effect. Stop gaslighting me. Some people say Luke, I am your father is a Mandela effect, which I guess because I do hear it in my head. Actually, one that sucks for me that I have, and it makes me an asshole, and I get that. I
The
distinct
Independence Day one.
exactly.
Yes.
I hate that one, but I can hear it. I can see it, and I can hear it. He says, "Welcome to Earth," and that's so bad. And I've seen it since, and it's so not true. Like, what bullshit was buried in my head that's that one. Oh, I hate that one. But I also remember Luke, I am your father. To be fair, a lot of like parodies and things have said those words, so now maybe I'm just remembering that. But he doesn't say Luke. He says, "No, I am your father," because Luke had to say something earlier. There's a couple other ones, like famous ones like that, like famous lines. There was like, no, that's not how it was. Um, in fact, people really fuck up the original, and this is people get confused because in the books, in the Harry Potter books, it Hagrid says you're a wizard, Harry. In the movie, he says you're a wizard, fucker, and everybody misremembers that. It's fine. You're allowed one. You're allowed one. So they used it early on in that. That's the episode title. You're a wizard, fucker. We haven't come up with a good. They're too long. All the good titles in this episode are far too
Mm.
long. Anyway, should we do a quest? Side quest?
Yeah, why not?
So I told you that in Expedition 33, I'm using the English voice cast, but they all swear in French.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I saw a series of outtakes of the actors essentially learning how to swear in French.
Mm.
They were having to say, because they don't just say merde, they say merde and
Mm.
putain. And so it was fun to watch the mostly British actors trying to get that.
Didn't wasn't it true in uh shoot, was the TV show they switched it for the movie, was a TV show called Serenity or Firefly? Serenity, right?
The TV show was called Firefly. The
Firefly.
movie was called
Movie.
Serenity.
I I always get it wrong. Anyhow, they swore in Chinese, right? Like
Yes.
they had to learn how to
Yes.
swear in Chinese.
Um uh the Firefly universe is very interesting in that the implication in the show is that Chinese culture is one of the cultures that really persisted out in space later. And
Oh.
there's lots of Chinese people occasionally as extras in backgrounds. And they swear in Chinese. There are no Asians with like speaking roles in the whole fucking show.
Hmm.
Like all the people that matter are white or occasionally black. It's one of those like, oh, what an interesting progressive stance that they can't. I love Firefly. I liked Buffy. I enjoy like when a celebrity goes down hard like Joss Whedon has, and we really pick apart all the shit he did wrong. I can't not see it in his work now.
Mm.
I
Mm.
see the oh, we all thought this was super feminist and shit, but now I'm seeing little bits. It's a similar thing. Anytime there's sort of a new angle, when the concept of the manic pixie dream girl was invented,
Mm.
and everybody's like, "Oh, this is such a new, progressive, empowering thing," and then over time we're like, "No, it's not. It's the exact opposite." And it's the same thing with most of Joss Whedon stuff. I'm like, "Oh yeah, this is kind of fucked up in a." One a misogynist way of the whole like I don't hate women, I love women kind of vibe. Like it's just and so I have a hard time watching any of his old stuff now because the stank is just in there and it feels weird.
Mm.
And that's one of them. I think an XKCD pointed that out to me originally that they were like the Firefly universe is supposed to be really Asian, but there's very few Asian people. And I was like, ah. Anyway, pick Joss Whedon's favorite number.
6.
And you know why he loves 6.
Mm-mm.
Me neither.
No.
I was hoping you did.
No, I don't know.
Why did I have you pick a number?
I don't know. Um,
This is interesting. I might want to pick this apart a little bit. Hang an inspirational poster or picture where you will see it often.
to help you remember.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Inspirational, and it's just all the shit you need to do. I think poster is hilarious. I'm like, when's the last time I put up a poster? But it does say or picture. Do you know what a fresco is?
Uh, I think
Like the
so.
art thing. You're like frescoes. How
Yeah.
would you define them?
Uh, they're, relatively large, often on a wall like a mural, except I think frescoes are like it. They are kind of, aren't they semi three-dimensional or something? Aren't frescoes semi
I think there
three-dimensional?
is something that I just over the years, like people say, "Oh, these are frescoes." I'm like, "Yeah," but like I've never really known. And
Well,
then I
maybe I
was
don't. Maybe I
recently,
don't know.
Well, no, I think you've got it just about right. I just never really knew. But there was an old episode of Travel Man that I saw recently again that was that is him and Joe Wilkinson, and they went into this place, and he's like, and look at the frescoes on the wall, and he's like, you mean pictures? He's like, no, frescoes. He's like, those are pictures. And he says, try to take those pictures off the wall. And he looks and he goes, frescoes. Yes, frescoes.
Oh, I
So
see.
that's a real easy, I mean, that's not the definition, but a real easy way to think about it is if you can't take it down, it's probably a fresco or a mural.
So frescoes and murals are similar.
I think so. I think so,
Is there
yeah.
a special name for the thing where it's like almost a semi three-dimensional thing? What is that called?
Um,
Where it's some of it sticks out, like some of it's
yeah,
sculpture,
yeah,
but
yeah,
it's on the
yeah.
wall. I mean, I don't know
I
what
think
that is.
that's what reality TV is. I've never,
But a fresco is just it's
I
painted
hear
on the
people
wall.
talk about that a lot. I don't know. I just know that is a defining characteristic now because I've just learned this. So you're not going to be able to put an inspirational fresco
Oh
because
yeah,
it
I
should already
suppose
be
that's
there,
not how
I
that
guess.
works.
All right. There's a quote at the end of this in again point 0.5 point font, in my opinion. So small. All right. Holy crap. Oh my goodness. No. Phone. Stop doing stupid things. Dude,
Yeah,
literally.
because it's the phone.
Every time I want you to do what you're currently doing, you never do. But when I want you, okay, here we go. All right. This is from Sasha Sagan. I rely on you to tell me if that's a wife or a daughter or a sister or a
No clue. No clue.
you suck. You
And
had
yet
one job.
everybody already knows this about me.
There is so much change in this universe, so many entrances and exits and ways to mark them, each one astonishing in its own way. Great. Cool. I do love that. Yeah, I don't. I'm sorry to be using a Seinfeld meme in the process, but I mean, I don't. That's awesome. Okay, nothing wrong with that sentence. It's a good quote. I don't know how I'm gonna apply it to anything ever, let alone an inspirational poster on my wall. I guess you could have. I guess this is a cop out. This card with the inspirational poster or picture could have literally any quote as long as you could argue it's an inspirational quote. Do you ever do Trish has dabbled in affirmations. That's a big one. You ever do stuff like that where you just like try mantras, that kind of thing? You ever play with that kind of stuff?
Mm, that's a good question. I mean, I've certainly um, proposed such things to other people, like as a sort of a mental reprogramming kind of routine, because
Yeah.
that is a thing out there, right? That's
I'm pretty sure there's data to back this shit up. Yeah.
no, yeah, no doubt. But have I ever used it myself or applied it to myself? Um, I don't think so.
I don't think I particularly have either, which is interesting because it's the repetition and it's the reinforcement. And so much of what I've been going through in terms of my therapeutic journey is there's a lot of behaviors or things that I do that I don't like and I don't want to do.
Mhm.
And the solution has not been finding the key that I stop. It has been practice. It has been walking into a situation and being like, okay, I'm not going to do these things. And like being very consciously aware. And then it's just doing that again and again and creating the muscle memory. So in essence, I'm doing something very similar already.
Right.
And yet I think I get as it becomes a bit of a double standard because I do appreciate the concept, but like it's one of those like, oh, should I do it? Well, it just seems silly. Just, every morning when you wake up, you just tell yourself good, like that my brain won't fall for that, clearly. Like there's some part of me that is like, no, that's really helpful for some people. Like I think there's a smugness in it because it seems so simple. But like you said, I think it's been proven to work.
Oh yeah, sure.
So
I mean, in fact,
maybe we should both start doing this shit. This is the wrong side quest. We don't need no inspirational picture. You should have told us to start doing some affirmations and shit, dude.
it was
Little, little
this is
weird ass looking gnome bastard.
yeah, this is the thing you and I have both been aware of, but like in my training recently, it's been talked about, and it's been talked about why it's done, why it's effective, when it's effective. Like all things, it's not effective for everyone, and I don't think it's always just a matter of smugness. I think sometimes it's a matter of, for some people, that just isn't going to do it.
Well, and there could be something going on in your head. So every time you say the positive thing out loud, there's a negative voice in your head that's like,
yeah. So I think I guess I feel like, and maybe this applies partly to you too, I don't know, but I think for me, whatever other strategies I've used in the past work just fine, right? Like it's never been I need to change my thinking. This needs to happen, and what I'm doing isn't working, so I'm going to try this mantra thing or affirmation thing. It's whatever else I'm doing works. So it just never occurred to me that this tool needed to be used. And I think that's largely still true. I mean, recently I went through some stuff where my old stuff wasn't working, ended up seeing a therapist or whatever. But like even in that interaction, never, like, mantras or affirmations never really came up. And what I've discovered through therapy is I still basically use the same tools I used to use. They just work better now thanks to being supported by therapy. So the affirmations as a tool, just, it's not like, why should I use it? What I do works. So I just don't.
yeah,
That's why I
I'm
don't use it.
definitely not in that situation.
You don't think so? You think it could work for you
I
and
mean,
you
I
just
don't know that
don't want to?
mantras or affirmations would work. I don't know that anyone in a professional capacity has ever suggested to me. I
Oh,
just know my life would be very different if what I currently use was working.
oh, I see. Yeah.
I will take all the extra solutions you might have available, right?
No, yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
Uh, but yeah, no one's ever actually like specifically suggested it to me.
Well, another thing is too
It
that
feel it feels very woo woo. I mean, we've discussed that there's some data behind it, but it feels very like vision boardy and a little
sure,
bit.
yeah, I can see that too. I can see
But
that
but
too.
but it's not, and we know this. So like,
Yeah, there are times where I think another thing for me is all right. So if I'm in a psychological situation, and let's just talk about it in terms of cognitive interventions, right? You're thinking a thing, you interrupt that negative thought, you replace it with a positive thought. And a lot of times that's really all an affirmation is, but you're saying it over and over to really reinforce that replacement. Because if you feel like, if you just say it once, like, no, I'm not a stupid person, say, because you have a thought that you're an idiot. Oh, I'm such an idiot. Wait, no, I'm not an idiot. And you repeat this over and over to really push back on that negative thought, right? But what if
well, you have to watch out. Your affirmations should not have negatives in them.
no. Oh, that's right. But if you say, like you said, if you say, no, I'm an intelligent person, but you instantly feel better, like, saying it once works. Like, you don't have to say it 16 times. You say, no, wait, I'm an intelligent person, and you're fine. You have interrupted that negative thought and you're better. Well, then you don't have to say it over and over. You see what I'm saying? And I think that applies to me a lot of times. If I'm having a thought that I need to interrupt and replace with a different thought, it works right away. I don't have to, like, kind of close my eyes and repeat it over and over and over again. I don't have to say it over and over again in the morning. I can just say it one time and it's like, oh yeah, that's right. That thing that I was just thinking isn't true. And then I can get on with it. I instantly feel better. But I don't
I
know.
am crazy envious of that. I've never had anything like that. If I have a
Well,
feeling, I there is virtually nothing that can get me to interrupt and change it on the
mm,
spot. It's it's
well,
it's a drag. And my version, again, not that I do this, but is that I just wake up every morning and say, one time, I'm an intelligent person. And the first morning when I wake up and do that, my brain is like, fuck you, dummy. And then in theory, every morning I say this, and if I am consistent, eventually my brain's like, okay, maybe he's serious about this. I don't know. And that's now again, this is a hypothetical example because I have not done this, and also of all the things wrong with me, very seldom do I believe I'm not an intelligent person.
oh yeah.
As much as my entire identity has been deconstructed in recent years, my belief that I'm a smarty has persisted. But um, yeah, no, there's a lot of things that I'm like, this is true, but I don't feel that way, and I have to like work slowly over time to get there. So I would
Well,
love if I could just say an affirmation once and bing.
well, so a couple caveats there. I might have to do it again later in the day. It's like that. It doesn't last forever. And I've been at this a really, really, really long time, right? I mean, I've been struggling with this type of stuff since I was quite young, and realized, well, you have to do this, and it didn't work when I first started doing it either. Um, but it's become a bit. And what I tell other people will say, William, it just doesn't work that way for me. I would love it if I could do that and it worked right away. I notice when I listen to them talk, and this, including you, sometimes I feel like I'm so much lazier than so many other people. Like it actually takes a lot of work sometimes to be anxious and to be self-critical. And I just don't do the work.
Oh yeah, see,
I just
and
don't
this is
do the
where I come
work.
back, William. I've been doing this for a long
Right.
time,
Exactly right.
by which I mean since birth.
Yeah. So
I have always been anxious, and I have always been hypercritical of myself and everyone around me, and constantly worried about what that means. Yeah. You have I've told you before, my therapist has said multiple times when I have described my thought processes the phrase, that really sounds exhausting. And I'm
yeah.
like, it is. It's also normal for me. So
Right,
it's
right, right,
fine.
right.
But yeah, no, it is really tiring. And I know this because then once I learned that other people don't feel the same way, I was just like, oh,
It's funny though, right?
wow. Imagine a life where you don't feel like this all the time. That's amazing.
It is funny what, like, when people look at other people's lives and they think, wow, that seems like a lot of work. But for that person, no, it isn't. They've done it. Like you said, I've done this my whole life, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing or an adaptive thing or a maladaptive thing.
Yeah.
If you've done it your
Well,
whole life, it's an easy lift. To everybody else, it's like, oh, that seems
exactly. And if
exhausting.
you think it's easy, because that I spent my whole life being like, why can't everybody be like me? Like, if you cared, you'd show up on time.
Mm, mm, mm.
But that's the thing, is you have to care so much about showing up on time to this specific thing in which showing up on time doesn't really matter. And for me, that's normal.
Mm, mm,
But for
mm.
everyone else, it's not. And in my brain, I'm like, oh, they just didn't care enough. No, they just grew up not crazy.
No, people have different
That's okay.
priorities, and that's okay. That's what we have to learn to figure out and get
Well,
along with other people that have different
that's where
priorities.
my mental health journey is right now. I think I've talked to you about this. This is why I'm struggling right now. I've really gotten to a point where I understand that my brain works in weird, specific ways
Mhm.
and everybody else's doesn't. And things that seem normal and common sense to me aren't true for everyone else because of my brain chemistry and my upbringing and all sorts of factors.
Yeah, that's true for everybody.
This, and I understand this intellectually,
Mhm.
this has not changed the fact that everybody everywhere seems to be acting like lunatics all the time and you're all doing everything wrong and I don't understand why. But what has changed because of therapy and because of the self-awareness I have made is now I know it's not you all, it's me. And that's like the dictionary definition of crazy. Like literally everyone in the world seems to be doing things that are nuts. And now I know, no, they're normal. I'm nuts. And this is why a couple weeks ago I spent an entire day being unable to stop crying all day long because of this revelation. I have since come to terms with it, but it's where I'm struggling right now because it's this idea that like, so now my goal is to just pretend well enough so that I can function with people, to just smile and say, you guys aren't all insane zombie people who are horrible to each other. And it's like when you used to constantly talk about how people seem to make choices that were counter to what they said their desires were. And that used to be like, that's where I am. I'm like, everybody can't put in some real basic effort for simple things like being on time to shit or just planning out your day or thinking ahead more than 10 minutes. Nobody ever gives any consideration to anyone else's emotions or their own. People think traumatizing people is funny. You all seem awful and you all seem insane. Not you, William. Again, I'm mentioning all of humanity, but not you. You're a special case all around. You're insane in different ways.
Yeah.
But you all seem bonkers to me. And I have gone through enough therapy to know it's me. And that just makes you feel crazy. Like you're like, oh, so the world's normal. And the fact that it seems horrible is my head. Well, that sucks.
Yeah, I hear you. I mean,
that's where I am right now. I'm like, so I'm genuinely crazy, I guess.
I'm sorry you feel that way about so because
and again, this is all my inner monologue. I know the reality and the rationality of the situation. I don't genuinely believe this, but there's a big part of my brain that does.
Yeah, and you have to cope with that. You've got to work that out.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. That makes sense.
But there is a lot, and this goes, the memory thing, this applies here too. A lot of this trying to change my behaviors out in the world, they're just fake it till you make it. Just, it sucks because you have to pay real close attention and try real hard, and sometimes you're going to slip and you're going to forget something or you're going to say something you didn't want to say and you're going to feel bad, and then you just have to get back on the horse and figure it out. And I am making progress for anybody who's worried that I've gotten to a little bit of a diatribe here. Things are better and I am making progress, but it's one foot in front of the other. And that's true for memory. That's true for one day at a time.
Yeah.
Kind of deal.
Yeah. When you've got a bad memory, like it just, no matter what you do, legitimately, you just forget things. It's hard because you do let people down and they do think things like you don't care. It's like, no, it's not that at all. Yeah. I do care. But I also I have a memory problem with literally everything. So then I have to work hard. And when you have to do that, you've got to prioritize things. And sometimes you don't prioritize them by what you think is important. You prioritize them based on what's going to have the biggest impact to my household, for example. Like why I prioritize work because I could lose my job. I could lose my license. It's not because I think that's more important than something else. It's because the consequences are more dire.
Your career and income are a high priority to your household.
Yeah, which it impacts not just me. It impacts, and not even just my wife. It can impact a lot of people.
Yeah, you still owe me $20.
So yeah, so that's a thing that eventually when you get to my age, it's like, well, I've got to give myself, even if other people don't, I've got to give myself some grace on this because it's just been my whole life. I've tried literally everything, mnemonic devices, also, everything I can do.
Be aware of it. Like when possible, maybe don't make you responsible for remembering things if there's a like easier way for somebody with a better memory, which unfortunately gets to do a thing. It's how I spent most, like Trish is really bad at scheduling now because I've been doing all the scheduling for her for the last 20 years. And so that becomes a thing. Like you do have to watch out for that. But yeah, operating in a space where you're aware that your memory is not good is important.
Yeah. And
don't just plow ahead as though your memory is fine and be like, sorry, give me some grace.
And you keep calendars and you keep notes, and then you have to remember to check the calendars and the notes.
Well,
and you have to,
your phone pops up reminders.
Right. And so
I forget to post the podcast every week. Luckily, my phone tells me.
Yeah. That kind of thing. You just have to, and then sometimes it won't work out because that's hard to do. It is hard. It's hard for me anyway. And
that's you are gonna fail sometimes, and it's the not giving up thing. You just got to try again.
But also be understanding.
You know,
when people get upset about it, I understand that. Like, I'm never going to go, oh, you're being unreasonable for expecting me to remember. No, I get it. I take a responsibility and accountability, because that's another thing that you're talking about is about not denying it. Don't think other people are being unreasonable to expect you to remember things.
Yeah.
Because you
unless it's me. I have unreasonable expectations.
No, you don't. Not really.
No, I do. If a person is 5 minutes late,
oh, I see.
They're dead to me. Like, a huge part of things is I am constantly angered and offended by what everyone does all the time. And again, that's on me, and I got to get that under control. And I'm much better than I'm doing a lot lately of being like very deliberately like, maybe don't worry about it. Don't worry about being on time. It doesn't matter. And then we're not on time, and guess what happens? Absolutely nothing. It's fine. Nobody gives a shit. Nothing changed. And so I'm doing more of that. The things that I worry about, and I'm like, this time I'm going to deliberately not worry about it and see what happens. And every once in a while, it's like, I should have worried about that.
Yeah.
But a lot of times it's like, yep, see, didn't fucking matter. How much brain power did I put into making sure this was it? Didn't matter.
So. Well, that's pretty cool, really.
All right. Well, we've done enough therapy for me for today, and we're over time. This is really turning into a mental health podcast in a lot of ways, which I'm okay with. I think I like that.
Sure.
We've got a genuine therapist and the world's smartest dude who doesn't wear pants. Guess which one you are. So write in to us, please. TheMagicalTalkingHat@gmail.com. Also go to the blog and tell us your thoughts on this shit that we talked about. TheMagicalTalkingHat.com. Maybe you really love the King Tide and you're gonna put me in my place. Do it. I love being put in my place. It's a very comfortable chair. For those of you who noticed, last week's video had a lot of Ezzy in it, which was unusual. She was in the midst of a very severe hunger strike, and so anybody who saw that and was worried about that, she is over her hunger strike now. Things are good again. That's important to some people. Oh, we saw another movie, but I'll talk about it next week. All right, but I didn't put it on the list. I should do that, and I had things to say. All right. Oh wait, I don't want to do that. So yeah, what just happened? I'm just hitting buttons. All right. Stop listening because the podcast is over, but then listening in next week. Oh wait, you know what really helps with memory?
What's that?
A little tiny